Hey everybody, so the clips you're about to watch are from Halloween of last year. I was constructing another one of our ice luges. Um, so that's the process you're about to see. You'll see most of the construction. You'll miss out on part of the demolding form removal because I was in a hurry whenever the party actually started, so I didn't get to document all that. Um, but it all worked out well. My only critique I would add to those of you trying to undertake this project is to use some sort of release agent on the inside of your form, either nonstick spray, PAM, some sort of food grade petroleum product. Um, you'll see in the ending video clips the actual luge in action, and you'll see that the bottom and back of the form boards I just left on because they were so hard to get off. And I ended up taking just a normal wood chisel and making a channel down the top of it, and it worked out really well. One small note you'll notice that I laid it flat instead of stood it up tall and steep, and it actually worked out better that way. So no need to worry about making it super tall like I did. If you need to make it smaller to put it in your freezer, it should still work really well. So thanks, enjoy.
All right, I kind of want to talk about my ice luge design that I've been working on. Uh, this is the second year I've made one. The first year I made it out of cardboard, and it was a little shorter and a little bit flatter on the grade, so it didn't flow very well, and it wasn't very flat and smooth because the cardboard kind of bowed out and stuff. So I'm using 3/4 inch melamine, uh, which is a little bit overkill as far as sturdiness goes, but I think it'll work great. Kind of started off with some rough drawings based on the dimensions of my spare garage freezer here. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out the shelves. I'm going to build a little flat base on the bottom. I'm going to finish gluing and nailing this up. Slide her in, and I will very slowly keep adding fluid to it. What you don't want to do when you make a large ice cube or ice luge is fill it all the way up to begin with and freeze it in one big freeze. You want to do it in layers. It helps for a couple reasons. One, the expansion effect that you get as the ice freezes, it goes up instead of out, so it's not going to, I guess, explode on you, and bust your forms apart. And it's also going to freeze more clearly because not so much air is going to be trapped in your ice. So it'll look better, it'll freeze better. It should hold its shape and not deform on you or break your mold. So that's one thing to keep in mind. When you're going to do an ice luge, you need to leave yourself time to make multiple pours. I'm actually planning on doing this one in like maybe a liter pour every other day, and different colors of some like sugar-free liquid or soda or something. So we've got a cool stratified popsicle looking ice luge. I think it's a cool effect. To kind of get into how we made these panels, it's just 5 pieces. The 4 sides, the bottom, the section up here, I'm gonna leave open, or it'll be flat on top. That one gives me a spot to pour as it's sitting in the freezer, and 2, it will it increased the steepness of my luge. If I had gone all the way here, it would have flattened out. Last year I made it too flat, and it didn't flow real fast. So I kind of wanted to increase that so it'll go real quick. So anyway, I just took the measurements. I have one 4x8 sheet of melamine, and I've already got all my pieces cut out. I have over half of it left. It didn't take much. This thing's about 30 inches tall, 12 inches wide, about 16 inches deep with a 4-inch flat top there. So now I'm just gonna silicone my seams, put some screws in there just to keep it solid. And then I'm also going to do some lights. I'll show you that as soon as I'm done. Okay, a little bit of an update. I let this thing glue up overnight, all the interior seams except for the last piece that'll go on the kind of the slanted side of the front, the face of the luge, I guess. And so you see I had to use some tape here. I used the same Dynaflex 230 on the PVC around the base and around that back section of the top to hold it. I really thought that it was going to be fine, but when I laid this thing down, it fell, and so I figured, you know, this will be at the very bottom. You'll never see the tape, so I just held it in there with tape. Another thing, I was kind of bragging about how durable the light strip felt, and I really had good initial impressions of it, but I will say that the end fell off after kind of just barely moving it, so not the end of the world. You know, I can solder this back on. One of the other things I didn't realize, this light kit I got off of Amazon didn't even come with a power supply, so I may not even put this back on. I may just run a Walworts or something to it and not even mess with this. Anyway, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a whole bunch of silicone here. I'm going to put the lid on, take the lid, put it on, probably put two screws on each side, and that's pretty much it. So last step before we let her dry and put her in the freezer. Okay, you can see that I've got the silicone gobbed on really thick. The idea is when I put the cover on top, it kind of smashes that silicone completely through the joint, and then probably even seeps out onto the inside, which I don't think I'll be able to get in there and clean it up much, so it might be kind of a sloppy finish, but I would rather risk that than, or I'd rather have a sloppy finish than risk it leaking out when it's in my freezer. So I'm going to put the cover on and put a couple screws in it. Okay, I actually put 3 screws per side. I noticed that when I look inside there, I could see where my diagonal cut to make that angle. It wasn't perfectly straight. I just cut it with a jigsaw, I think, circular saw, jigsaw, I don't remember. Anyway, it's not perfectly straight, so there were some undulations in the joint here, so put a couple extra screws in there just to make sure that silicone got all smashed down. I don't know if this would work, but I figured if I could see light through it, I had a problem. Looks really good. We've got a nice thick oozing, I can't remember the term, seepage. Got real good seepage on the inside, and so I think we're good to go. I'm going to stand this back up, let it dry, then it's into the freezer. Whew, she's in. So I ended up having to take the top out. There's a handful of wires in there, there's some nuts. It wasn't that bad, but I would recommend. I took a video of how it was all connected, because there's, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different blade connector spots there, and I have a terrible memory. So the door shuts finally. Anyway, oh yeah, one more thing. So have a plan to get that out of there, assuming it doesn't swell. And that does just slide right out, which I will document closely. You can see there's a little bit of a gap here. It's pretty tight here. We'll see what that does. But I have a plan to get this thing out. That box is heavy, empty. and it's going to be almost impossible for one person to manage by themselves. So I considered building straps into the bottom of the box. If you're using a deep freeze, like a chest style, it would be really easy to lay straps underneath it, and then you can just lift it straight out when it was time with some help. But since I'm doing this vertical freezer, I'm not going to have that ability. So what I'm going to do is I have a motorcycle jack. I'm going to roll it right up to the front of that thing, and hopefully I can just shimmy it forward. I may end up having to drill into here and put a couple handles so I have a way to pull. But all right, we're ready.
Okay, so far I've had 2 successful pours. On day 1, I just did, this is about 3/4 of a gallon. That's what I did on day 1. I didn't want to risk pouring in a whole bunch and then it leak, and then I just have a big mess. So I poured in the first 3/4 of a gallon. I checked it the next morning. There were no leaks. Everything looks really good. The following day I did another 3/4 of a gallon, and now I'm going to do another. Like I think I've mentioned, I'm doing small pours because that will give us the best results. It's going to give a nicer look. It's going to give a cleaner, clear block of ice when we're done. If you do a big pour at once, you risk too much expansion sideways, and we want vertical expansion of the ice because we have room to go up. We don't have room to go out. Also, it reduces the amount of air bubbles. So if you do a big pour, even if you can offset that expansion, horizontal expansion, there's going to be a lot of air trapped inside. So we're doing a nice thin pour. I've got 5 weeks, so I'm not worried about how long it takes, just a pour a day. As we get further up the luge, I'll do less and less each time. That way, because right now, I've got a much larger surface area to work with. Every pour I do, I'm gonna have incrementally less surface area. So I think this is my last red pour. This will put me at 2 1/4 total gallons, and then after that I'm gonna do some orange Fanta. I may also not have mentioned that I'm gonna do it's gonna look like a giant popsicle. It's gonna be a flavored luge. This is red Hawaiian punch. Next I'm gonna do some orange, then I'm gonna do probably some pineapple, then something green, then something blue. I think I'm gonna get 5 nice layers out of it. One challenge that I'm not sure how I'm going to offset is when I go to orange tomorrow, I don't know what it's gonna do when I pour orange liquid on top of a frozen red layer below it. What I'm afraid is gonna happen is the liquid is going to melt around the perimeter, and it's probably going to seep down between the red layer and the outside and the form walls. So don't know how that's going to look when it's all said and done, but we'll find out in 5 weeks or so. The good news is, even if there is even if there's a thin layer of the color above, kind of on the outside, that'll be the first thing to melt. And so after being out in the air for, I don't know, 20-30 minutes, that kind of will probably melt away. So I'm going to pour this in. There's nothing technical about it. I've got that hole in the top, so I'm just going to pour it in. One thing I have done that may help others is every time I make a pour, I write down the amount, the color, and the date to help me track. You won't be able to see that, but I've got it written down there, right there. So I'm going to go ahead and pour it in. Whoops. Got a little powder left. I didn't mix it very well. Oh well.
God, you look evil.
Right here?
Yeah, you ready? What?
That's cold as shit.
Come on, Trey. These priests can't keep up.
Feel it.
Woo!